The phone conversation between fantasy veterans Bob Harris and Matt Waldman is a quick and dirty rundown of players, units, or teams from Sunday's games. Feel it or fuck it is our instant verdict on the fantasy value of a player situation, not the ability, effort, or character of the player. This is just how two old-timers in this industry talk when they got a lot to cover in a little time.
Ah!
Aliens!
Like now we know why you wear a hat all the time. You look like the aliens guy meme. Well done, man. That was like horrifying. Good morning, Matt. How are you?
I'm doing pretty well on my Doc Brownish self. How about yourself?
I'm doing fantastic. Week 14 in the books, heading into the fantasy playoff run. Things get a little more important, a little more intense for the people remaining. Look, if you're out of the running, there's daily, there's all kinds of things. There's postseason tournaments, so don't feel like you're cut out of the fun. There's still a lot going on. Jump on in the mix. And also, get Christmas presents. The early bird special is still available, Matt Waldman.
Yeah, rookie scouting portfolio, pre-draft, post-draft guide for 2024, which will be available April 1st. And then with the post-draft 1 week after the NFL draft. Been going now, entering its 19th year. 19th year in the business. And, you know, you want to be ahead of the game on folks like Lamar Jackson, Patrick Mahomes, Nick Chubb, Cooper Kupp, you know, the list, Justin Jefferson. The list is long. And, you know, there's mistakes too, for sure. Trey Sermon, you know, Demarcus Thomas, you know, I can think of those guys right off the bat. Pretty good, but still.
I think if you're out there playing in dynasty leagues and digging deeper, I can tell you that I have players on my rosters now I would have otherwise never heard of, or not for the rookie scouting portfolio. Look, I cover pro football, right? Yeah. So during the college football season, I'm not watching these players. I have no knowledge of them. So where does my knowledge come from? It comes from the rookie scouting portfolio, and that's why I end up with players on my roster this year: Parker Washington, Xavier Hutchinson. Guys that, you know, may just be getting some opportunities coming ahead, and we'll get to see what they do. But were it not for the rookie scouting portfolio, I'd have no idea who to be drafting in my dynasty leagues. It's a fact. And probably some of you are in the same boat, even if you're not, even if you just love football, right? If you just love football and you want to sit down and read like about the qualities and the attributes that make a player great or not great, and gain an understanding of the scouting process a little bit as well, because Matt shows all the notes, all the behind the scenes work. You get a feel for how to look at these things for yourself going forward. So great from that perspective as well. So go out and get that thing.
Yeah, $19.95 is the discount. It's, you know, it's cheap. It's powered on alien technology. You know,
well, I paid full price. I will not. Yeah. I refuse to buy the discount version. I know you like cash flow, so go buy it, people. But yeah, I'm paying full freight. I love it.
And I appreciate the crazies who do, like my friend here, Bob Harris. So I definitely.
I believe I have all 19 years laying around here. So.
Hey, look, you might be in, because of that, you might be in store for what my wife's doing downstairs, because she's bookbinding right now. She's like making these like nice looking tomes with leather covers and gold leaf and all this stuff. Yeah, she's been doing some. So she's apparently gonna make some 20, all 20 editions in a leather set. So we'll see. She might do a couple of them. We might give one away. We'll see down the line.
Right.
But
all right, let's dive into week 14 then, Matt, and get busy here. Interesting game yesterday in Cleveland where Trevor Lawrence playing on a bum leg. That guy's an alien. There's your alien. That's a high ankle sprain, and he's playing this week. This is like not the first time he's done this either, right? We go back to, was it last year, the toe injury, missed 0 time. This year, the knee sprain, missed 0 time. In fact, came back 4 games later and led his team in rushing. And here he was out there.
He's a Georgia boy.
Look at no, here we go. Looking a little worse for the wear, but not, you know, but man, God bless that guy. He's amazing, and a lot to be said. I mean, the team thinks he's very limber. I think that when you watched him go down on the play he was hurt, I thought the knee opposite the leg that he sprained, I said, oh, that's not good either.
No.
There's nothing the matter with that. And that's the flexibility we're talking about. Also, the flexibility in choosing his weapons. Often he chooses to target Calvin Ridley. He did that yesterday, not with great effect, but he did choose to target him heavily. Calvin Ridley in Jacksonville next year, is he going to be like a cheap asset or a discount priced asset that you're going to be looking to invest in?
Something tells me Calvin Ridley is going to be looking to recoup some of that money that he lost when he got suspended, and will be trying to go elsewhere, and somebody else is going to, and I don't want to say fall for the bait, because Calvin Ridley is a good football player. I think they may fall for he is a primary receiver in the NFL. And I think what we've seen this year is kind of what we've seen most of the time when he was in Atlanta. Not that one big year he had, but most of the time, which is dropped passes, misrun routes, some key mistakes and moments that you wish you wouldn't see. I mean, there was a slant where that led to an interception where Lawrence was literally like, and Lawrence seems like a calm guy, and Lawrence was literally screaming at Ridley across the field, like, look at me. When you make that break, look, and then there was another misrun route that led to an, bad play. And so there's some things there that Ridley's good, but to me, put him in that Devonta Smith tier where people will argue till they're blue in the face that they're primary receivers, but they really aren't. They're helped out by a secondary option.
Bottom line, feel it or fuck it. Will he be back as a Jaguar next year?
Fuck it.
No, he's gone.
Yeah,
somebody's going to pay him? I guess that's like, you think someone will fall for the...
Yes. I mean, they fell for Josh McDaniels. I'm sure that they'll fall for... they've fallen for Josh McDaniels, Johnny Manziel, Baker Mayfield, Deshaun Watson. I mean, come on. Somebody's going to pay for Calvin Ridley. I hope it's not the team I just mentioned.
Let's move on to the guy that I mentioned, Parker Washington, who, by the way, I think, if you look back to the 2 weeks ago, the play on which Trevor Lawrence was hurt was a hot read that maybe Parker Washington didn't realize was a hot read, right?
yeah, for sure. But you can at least blame that a little bit on being a rookie and entering your first,
coming off IR, right? He had just coming off IR.
Yeah, but when you watch the past 2 weeks, what you see is a player who really has a knack for winning contested catch or trust throw type of targets, targets that Ridley doesn't always win, and doesn't mean that they're the same type of player, because Ridley plays the slot but can play outside. He can do both, and he's a deep threat. Parker Washington isn't gonna beat your best cornerback with speed. He's not gonna even beat your second best cornerback with speed. But if he's in the area, he can come down with the football, and he is a trust throw magnet. Trevor Lawrence is a trust throw quarterback that we've always seen that at Clemson, whether, whoever he had at Clemson that he was targeting, he was really good at just putting the ball in an area where his receiver can go up and win it. And that's Washington's specialty, along with breaking tackles after the catch. So I see Washington being a pivotal slot role guy. They need a true number one, though. If you give them Kirk, Washington, and Jones isn't that guy. Jones could be a nice 3 or 4th guy pairing with Washington, but they need a primary guy. Whether it's they get in the draft a Roma Dunze or a Marvin Harrison or a Malik Neighbors, they can get somebody.
How does Parker Washington coexist with Christian Kirk?
I think it goes well because both of them can probably work inside outside as the flanker. And, so they win a lot after the catch. I think Washington's better as your, underneath slot receiver, but you can interchange them a lot.
So I'm going to go with one that I totally feel. You can fuck it if you want. But this is set for you as a Cleveland Browns aficionado to some degree. Joe Flacco will help the Browns win in the playoffs.
I'm feeling it, too.
Yeah,
I mean, look at, Brandon Leister said it very well, and a Cleveland Browns analyst and quarterback coach is that it took 38 years, but the Browns have finally figured out that when you get a quarterback who can actually throw accurately and process information in the middle of the field on time and be competent, you can actually do a lot. And when the biggest thing you notice with Flacco is that he spreads the ball around. Last week, David Njoku wasn't playing his best. Harrison Bryant played well. This week, David Bell had a long play on a broken coverage on 4th and 3 that turned into a touchdown. But you could also see that he spread the ball around to, I want to say, 8 or 9 receivers, maybe even more than that. Yeah. Eight.
I was counting.
Yeah. See, there you go. Yeah.
And the way the target shares worked out, Amari Cooper, the lead receiver, gets 13. Makes sense. Elijah Moore, Cedric Tillman, 6 and 4. David Bell, kind of the outlier guy, got 3. David Njoku had his 8. Yeah. Jordan Akins had 1. Jerome Ford 5. Kareem Hunt 1. So he did spread it around nicely. Look, well, I mean, am I expecting at some point for there to be moments of not greatness? Yes. I expect them to be fewer and farther between than what we've seen from the quarterback play to this point. And I'm going to include Deshaun Watson in that mix, who, had his struggle, seemed to be getting up to speed finally, right? I'll give Deshaun Watson that credit, but boy, for what the investment in him has been, the expectation certainly wasn't it was going to take him some time to get up to speed. And that still seems to be a process that's ongoing. So I'm not sure he's all the way there. Joe Flacco's up to speed. And even if there's going to be some moments where you go, God, that sucked, because there always is with Flacco at some point. But like overall, I think this, if you have a team like the Cleveland Browns where you can play defense,
and
you have a solid running back core, you have some solid talent on the outside in the form of Cooper and Njoku, and I'll throw Elijah Moore in there. I think this sets them up better than we've seen them set up for a while. Feeling it, both of us.
Yes.
Breece Hall, an elite producer by 2025. Feel it or fuck it.
Feeling it, because he's damn close right now without a quarterback or an offensive line. He is second. I believe he's second in catches this year among running backs, and third in yardage. So he's up there with McCaffrey and Kamara already as a receiver, and that's really on the bulk of what he's doing since week 8. Up to week 6, he was averaging 3 targets per game. After the week 7 bye, he's averaging 6.7 targets per game. And a lot of that has to do with the quarterback, right? But at the same time, if they bring back Aaron Rodgers and he's healthy enough to go, that's going to allow you 2 things. One is they're going to be able to run that 49ers-esque offense that they're going to be running, and let Breece Hall be the McCaffrey type of player. So one of 2 things happens. Either they're going to raise their amount of offensive snaps to where Hall's receptions as they are right now will translate to in the offense and be proportionate to what the offensive is normally running, and it's just going to not change much. But he's going to get more touches in the red zone. Instead of having 2 rushing touchdowns, he's probably going to have at least 6 at this point next year, if not more.
And by the way, he is tied for second in catches with Christian McCaffrey, 52. He is second in targets at 66, just both of those behind totals behind Alvin Kamara, only Alvin Kamara. And so like yesterday, was you watched the 49ers and you saw the first play of the game, Christian McCaffrey break off that 76-yard run, was it? Yeah. That's also Breece Hall. I mean, that he is going to break off those long runs. I think, this year's been a little bit of a rough ride. Why would it not be? He's coming off a torn ACL. That should have been the expectation. That he got in, was it the first game he got in, and I felt like it was a, kind of an honorary, like, okay, get your beak wet, kid. And then he tore off a bunch of long runs, and he ended up getting a little more. And then they dialed back a little bit, and I think probably he was dealing with soreness. It's the kind of things you would expect.
And he looked rough on those runs. I mean, like that was him at 70% compared to what he would have done.
This should be this should have been the expected outcome, him ramping it up as we go along. Now, he did play this week on a bad ankle, kept him out of practice for 2 days as well, and I thought he looked really good. I was very skeptical of him going in. I was probably assessing too wide a range of options based on the injury, and
and Cook.
And Cook coming out. So the thing that caught me this week was, the report on Thursday that he was working on the rehab field, right? Yeah. You just hear the word rehab, you're going, well. Yeah. I'm not gonna be excited. And then Rich Samini, who covers that team on the daily for ESPN, said this might be a Dalvin Cook week, and so that got ingrained in my head. I still played Breece Hall, but I didn't enthusiastically endorse him as I should have, and that won't happen again, Mr. Breece Hall, sir. I feel you.
Yeah, totally feeling him.
Demarcus Robinson, wide receiver 3 to wide receiver 4 value going forward. Do you feel that working behind, alongside, in the mix with variously surgent and non-insurgent Cooper Kupp and the amazing Puka Nacua?
I'm kind of feeling it, because when you see the teams that the Rams face, they're either really good against the pass or really bad. And either way, especially with Tutu Atwell getting banged up in that game, I mean, he looked like a stunt man.
Like he was hurting a bunch of different ways on the single play where he kind of
the way he
was game situation.
Yeah, the way he walked to the blue tent looked awful. That looked like you are.
It looked like multiple things. Like his knee kind of got twisted around, his head banged on the ground. There was a lot going on there.
Yeah, I was kind of thinking, like, isn't someone helping him to this tent? Because he doesn't look like he should be on his feet right now.
He's trying to channel his inner Trevor Lawrence.
Yeah,
he looked that card.
He looked. I'll just say this: he was tough. He gets a toughness award for just making his way to the tent based on the way he got hit.
I'm with you.
But Demarcus Robinson, I mean, you look at it this way. Matthew Stafford seems to have a rapport with him. And also he has that wily quarterback, veteran type of understanding that, look, there's going to be a number of situations where I just need to target Robinson. He's going to be wide open because everyone's focused on my other two receivers or my running back. And so let's leverage him in these. Like last week, touchdown was that way. This week, it was just more a function of Robinson winning the ball. And Stafford targeted him a couple times in some red zone scenarios late in the game, too. So you can see that there's a connection, and Stafford likes that. I mean, after all, Stafford threw the ball to A.J. Green at Georgia and threw the ball to Calvin Johnson in Detroit. Do you think if there's anybody that we would put and say trust throw is a trust if there's a guy that he's like, I can make the trust throw to this guy, he's going to be attracted to doing that. So Robinson, to me, it was kind of that gut feeling last week. Now there's a little more confirmation, so I'm feeling him as maybe
10 targets, tied with Cooper Kupp at the top of the ranks, one ahead of Puka Nacua, who, by the way, continues to be pretty amazing. And Cooper Kupp, shows that there is still some Cooper Kupp left in him. I think Robinson only caught 3 of the targets, but one of them was for a touchdown. And I also feel like, this is me, just eyeball test wise, I did not study the film. I am not Matt Waldman. But just, I think the trust that Stafford has in him, he throws him some tough balls.
Yeah.
Right? And, that aren't necessarily easy plays to make. So I'm not making excuses for the young man. He can certainly make his own, but I thought he looked pretty damn good. I thought Ezekiel Elliott looked super good, playing in a horrible Patriots offense that just showed up. So we're going to talk about a couple players here in the Patriots. I think we need to acknowledge first that if that's the offense they're going to be playing in, that, okay, I might feel them. If it's the offense we've seen for most of the season, the historically bad offense, the offense that in the 3 games previous set scoring parameters not matched in 85 years in the NFL, losing 3 games to teams that scored 10 points or fewer. It was 26 points scored against them. So we'll just go ahead and stipulate this is last week's Patriot offense. Ezekiel Elliott, what do you think of it?
I've been feeling Ezekiel Elliott. I'm still feeling him. He's he really understands how to play the game at his position. You can see why Bill Belichick coveted him, because not only it's just the pass rush capability to protect there, but what he does as a receiver. I know Dallas fans would say, "Oh, he's not that much of a receiver." Well, you wouldn't have known that otherwise last week against the Steelers in terms of how he made most of his yardage. Came off of that, but he is a workhorse. He's the type of old school running back that could have played 15, 20 years ago, and had multiple 300 touch seasons and probably been just fine. Maybe he had better years than others, but he's so efficient in how he moves and understands the schemes well. And I just think that he's not going to be efficient on the ground, but he's going to accumulate a lot of volume for you that's going to work out as a running back 2, running back 3. And if he scores, he vaults into running back 1 position.
Yes, and it does look like Ramondre Stevenson will miss multiple weeks, so we'll be watching that as well. Juju Smith-Schuster caught 4 of 6 targets, 90 yards in this game, and on a night when Bailey Zappi hit 19 of 28, 240, 3 touchdowns with an interception. So semi-competent quarterback play seems to be a key for any receiver. Was that the case here more so than Juju Smith-Schuster being fantastic?
Yeah, I mean, I think it's
also attrition, Matt, right? There was nobody else.
Nobody else. There's nobody else, and there probably isn't going to be anybody else. And when you look at Juju Smith-Schuster, I mean, look, he was paired with Patrick Mahomes last year. And let me go on a little Patrick Mahomes rant here, because I think people will say this. Well, what's wrong with Mahomes that he's in the lower half of the top 10 in fantasy as opposed to being an elite guy? And my answer is it's really about bakers and chefs, okay? You have, bakers are the type of players who rely on precision. They're, very game plan oriented. They're very reliant on high-end techniques by the book, pre-snap reads, players executing exactly the way they need to around them. The recipe has to be exact for the conditions to happen, or have as much control over their environment as possible. Chefs are kind of more like, well, we can adjust the recipe on the fly. If we've got a good team of people, we may even have some happy accidents here. It may work out. They definitely have technique, but there's a lot more room for error with cooking than there is with baking. Patrick Mahomes is a cook. He's a chef. And when you have a team of Tyreek Hill and Travis Kelce, you have two high-end players who can be chefs along with him who can adjust. And you need that in an offense that's complex like a West Coast offense. The offense is still good. Andy Reid's offense isn't the problem. I mean, they're still atop their division. But the problem is that you need a wide receiver who can be as good at improvising as Patrick Mahomes is to get the best out of Patrick Mahomes. And you're not getting that with Rashee Rice, who they're just basically doing instant meals with by all these scheme plays that are just like screens, RPOs, different things that are only designed to get him the ball, and there's no real improvisation or room there. And they don't have anybody else. And Kelce isn't that big play option. Now, because the guy who was a little better, in that Rashee Rice role last year, but could do more and you could do more with him in range, was Juju Smith-Schuster. He's that smart of a player. He just isn't a top-end athlete. If he had Tyreek Hill's athletic ability, well, if he had, let's say if he had Demarcus Robinson's athletic ability, he would probably be a top 15 receiver in the league right now. But he's not that. But the thing is, he can improvise. He understands the game well. And Bailey Zappi hasn't had his wits beaten out of him like Mac Jones, or been frustrated by the fact that his development was relying on some crazy, combination of people. In fact, he was just probably left to the wolves. And Zappi said, "Well, glad I don't have to start in the midst of this right away. I can at least watch." And it's like watching how you're going to get executed by somebody else gets executed first. You at least have your plan of attack to see how you can talk your way out of it, or maybe change the method. I think that's where Bailey Zappi is, and Juju Smith-Schuster kind of benefits.
Well, a couple things. Coincidentally, one of my many nicknames is Happy Accidents. We won't go into that, but but also the target distribution in that game. We mentioned there weren't a lot of pieces to go around. It was Elliott led the way with, I think, 8, was it? Yeah. 8 for Elliott, 6 for Juju, 5 for Tyquan Thornton. Surprising that he caught 3 of those. Speak of happy accidents. Hunter Henry had 3, but he caught all of his, including a pair of touchdowns. Zeke had a touchdown as well. So there were, it's pretty slim pickings around him as well.
Happy endings for Robert Kraft, though.
Yes, very much.
Yes.
And always for Robert Kraft.
Yep.
Isaiah Likely, feel him or fuck him?
Nah, fuck him. There was a broken coverage for a long play, and I understand that he'll be involved, but I would not be leaning on him for fantasy purposes right now. This is the Zay Flowers, Odell Beckham, show with a dash of Keaton Mitchell or Gus Edwards when they get in close.
I slightly disagree. Okay. In a world where we're streaming tight ends, as long as nobody thinks he's a 1-for-1 replacement for Mark Andrews, as long as you have the expectations correct, he's a playable commodity. Like if you're out there swimming in the sea with the Gerald Everetts of the world and that crowd, then yes, he's a viable streamer. Sure. And he plays with a pretty good quarterback. And he's a very athletic guy. Like I kind of forgot how athletic he is until I kind of got the eyeballs on him the last 2 weeks, and there's a little of that. So feel him for what he is, but fuck him if you think he's Mark Andrews, because he's not that guy. Speed kills, Matt, according to Chase Brown. You feeling or fucking this Cincinnati rookie running back?
I'm totally feeling him, and I'm feeling him because Cincinnati's got it right with how to use him. They're using him in the screen game, and they're using him on plays where he does not have to do a lot of reading of the defense. Just toss plays, gap plays, things where it's like, hit this hole, hit it hard, hit it fast, use your athletic ability. We'll leave all the other diagnostic stuff to Joe Mixon when we want to run those types of plays where you've got to kind of set up blocks. And Chase Brown has done that very well, and I think that's getting him acclimated and helping him be a little bit more confident in what he executes, and I think it'll help him grow into a good player down the line.
I think Zack Taylor might be a decent coach. I don't want to overstate my case here, right?
Look at that.
I don't want to overstate my case, but over the course of time, I've seen him do things like that, maybe are kind of low key, but making, some of the adjustments to this offense to get Chase Brown involved is one of them. I go back to when Jamar Chase came off his injury, right? Prior to that, they'd been using him as just like a one thing, like the deep threat guy. They came back, and I think out of necessity, because he wasn't, all the way up to speed, they started using him on crossing routes, shorter routes, more intermediate stuff, and discovered a whole new avenue to use Jamar Chase, which gives you multiple avenues because he can still do the deep things. But I think some of the adjustments he's made over the course of the season, late last season, Joe Mixon getting up to speed as a runner, they adjusted the way they were, approaching the run game. They changed the way they were blocking and where they were running him. I just think there's been some kind of subtle adjustments over the course of seasons that belie his vanilla look.
Are you feeling him as maybe Sean McVay without the stubborn streak?
Yes, or without the need for all the attention.
All right,
maybe
I
that.
like that.
Maybe that.
Rico
Dowdle, feel him or fuck him.
I'm always feeling him, but I would say long term, like for the rest of the season, I'd say fuck him unless as anything more than just a break the glass in case of emergency, hold on to the end of your roster thing.
I feel like this one is a setup for David Tepper somewhere wrote this so we could feel better about Bryce Young. CJ Stroud without Nico Coliins and Tank Dell. Feel it or fuck it?
I'd say fuck it at this point. And I know that, maybe Dalton Schultz comes back. Maybe Xavier Hutchinson gets up to speed a little bit faster. Noah Brown gets a little bit healthy. Maybe John Mechie, but I'm not feeling John Mechie. I haven't been feeling him all year. So I'm looking at this, and if you're thinking, oh, he'll rebound and be back to what he was, I don't think so until at least Coliins gets back. So if Coliins is out for any length of time, I am not feeling this right now.
Calf injuries, very tricky. People asked Joe Burrow and ask Bob Harris. I had one that lasted a year. Right, you keep thinking you're past it. You push a little bit harder than you should, and it's right back. So hopefully he can get back quickly. I was not getting 24/7 treatment with high-end trainers, so probably, and I am like a very old man, so there are differences. I will acknowledge those differences. Not necessarily an elite athlete. The list is long. So this is a multivariable equation, though, right? So CJ Stroud did not play well, had the concussion, so he ended up getting hurt. But also there was really tough matchups for the pieces that were remaining. I'm not going to give up on him at this point, but you probably drafted him after whoever else you drafted, right? So hopefully you haven't narrowed it down. Like I kind of advocate for that. Get down your onesie positions to one guy. This would probably be the argument against that. Things happen, especially if you have high-end quarterbacks. But if you have a valuable piece behind him, you'll be glad you did probably at some point. Because I tend to agree. Even if you think this was a super tough matchup, and it was, but I mean, but he beat the week before he had more pieces and he beat a tough matchup in Denver, right?
Yeah.
So
and I think that's the thing we have to understand. I mean, it's look, it was in the rain. The Jets. Right. The Jets were able to get a free man in Stroud's face routinely by the time he finished dropping back. Maybe he got one or two reads out and he had to try and take action with multiple guys in his face. But he also, by the time they were in the second half, he was not accurate anymore. He was throwing the ball consistently too far behind his receivers and getting a lot of plays under. He had a lot of near interceptions in this game. And he's had a lot of near interceptions this season. He's still a good player, but he's this close to having a very different point of view than people realize.
Yeah, I would agree with that. But again, these are always multivariable situations. Yeah. You have to take them all into account. Jared Goff, multivariable equation here. He's outside. He sucks. Jared Goff in his current slump.
Oh. I'm going to say he's going to turn it around. looking at the schedule, I mean, again, Goff with with what we have left, and if you've narrowed it down to Goff, you're now looking at, I'm looking at the wrong season. Okay, there we go. And if you're looking at it now, you're looking at, let's see, Denver and Minnesota and Dallas. That's not exactly a great schedule for you. Denver's not bad. Minnesota could be pretty good, but they blitz a ton. But he's probably in good weather environments for 2 out of those next 3, and they can still run the ball on these teams. I'm gonna still say feeling them, but you're probably looking at another option alongside him.
His 2 road games though are indoors, right? Yeah. So like he goes indoors the rest of the way essentially, which I think helps. I was listening to your buddy Sigmund Bloom this morning on the Audibles podcast. And he made a really interesting analogy. I don't know much about baseball, but I kind of got this one anyway. He thinks like the Detroit Lions compared them to the Colorado Rockies, who are a team that's built for their stadium, right? They play at a high altitude, and so they don't have much pitching, but they have the hitters that can take advantage of the altitude and he thinks the Detroit Lions are built for their stadium.
It's funny because my buddy Brandon Angelo said they're built to win outdoors based on their run game and offensive line. The problem is the quarterback. So maybe the quarterback is the big issue. Is if we can get Goff to get that outside mentality, they'll be good. Or it's just that in the playoffs, if everyone's beaten up enough, the Lions might have a chance here because of their run game. I see both sides of the equation there. I'm more on Bloom's side, I think, at this stage based on Goff.
All right, Tyler Lockett, feel him or fuck him?
Feel him as a player, fuck it this year. I think if Drew Lock is still the quarterback, then I'm probably feeling him a little bit more. If Geno Smith comes back, fuck it.
It has been a full year since he had 100 receiving yards in a game. He's become like he's always been perceived as maybe more boom bust than he is. Right, like because he has a lot of big games, and I think the busts were fewer and farther between. I think this year he's more boom bust.
If Tyler Lockett winds up in Jacksonville, I am totally feeling him. If he doesn't, if he doesn't, then that's a different.
Maybe
story.
Seattle will just take Calvin Ridley off.
Maybe they will. I mean, Pete, you know how Pete is.
Crisscross.
Yeah,
Crisscross.
Pete might find something exciting about that. I don't know.
All right, let's wrap this thing up for this week. Week 14. Heading into week 15. There was a lot of excitement over a situation. Isaiah Pacheco has the shoulder injury. The Chiefs are playing the Buffalo Bills, a very generous run defense. So we had the questions I got on the SiriusXM Fantasy Sports Radio Football Diehards program last week and on my YouTube channel live stream were about nothing other than CEH versus Jerick McKinnon. Who do you play? I feel like, Matt, for me, this played out like almost like you would write the script or what you would expect, like based on logical outcomes here, which we know we don't always get in the NFL. Do you think that, and by that I mean CEH getting the early down work, McKinnon getting the third down 2-minute offense kind of work,
and just red zone,
right? In red zone, probably. Does that seem sticky to you?
Yes, very sticky. And I had somebody ask me about it. Should I drop Zach Charbonnet for CEH? And I was like, why would you? And I think I said, okay, and I'm not being a smart aleck. I said, the question I would ask back is, why would you take a player like Zach Charbonnet, who could be a starter at any moment and get starter volume, including red zone looks, in an offense that's good enough, for a player who we know isn't always quite good enough to do anything more than the first 2 downs worth of work, isn't very good in the red zone, doesn't break a lot of tackles, and isn't going to get much in the passing game, and is probably going to cede way to a player who just came back, who seems to be their favorite passing down target in the red zone in McKinnon. And we saw what played out there. So, yeah, I mean, I'm totally feeling McKinnon if I had to go with one or the other, even though the volume favors CEH.
Right, I think McKinnon, like for a lot of us, and there are memories of great memories of last year where Jerick McKinnon likely won you a championship as a running back too over the final 6 games of the season, had 8 touchdowns. So there's something some connection problems. Is there
He's
any
a
reason
Georgia
to pay
boy. Aliens.
Is there look at you? Is there any reason to pay any attention to Deneric Price before we get out of here? Deneric Prince, I'm sorry.
I would keep an eye out for him. He is a he is a nifty runner for his size, but I would not get overly excited. And if Keontae Ingram is still on the Chiefs practice squad, over time we might even see him beat out Deneric Prince. We'll see.
All right, go chase aliens. Love you. Goodbye.
Love you. Bye.